lady here is blocked in by a car. It's a Ford. Turn your thing on there, please.
A blue Ford.
HYP 369.
Yeah, H. Henry, Y. Young, P. Paul, 369. Okay. Thank you.
I'm gonna go ahead and take the question, the gentleman behind you.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of respond to the lady that just talked, because I'm a healthcare professional and I've actually conducted medical studies. So when you're talking about trying to find causality, it's a very difficult thing to do, but you need to have a blinded, controlled study. And if you want to read a lot of research that's out there, and I've seen a lot of research on this, these studies are terrible. They're designed terrible, they're funded by various things, but if you really look at it closely, you have to go through a lot of education to fully understand what a quality study is and isn't. So I know that doesn't directly help your question, but the point is that it's extremely difficult to take subjective matter from people and try to determine causality, because at that point you could find causality from anything. The noise from a tractor could cause health problems. The noise from a hog confinement could cause problems. The noise from a grain dryer can cause problems. There's all kinds of things that cell phones, there's been people that say electromagnetic pulses from cell phones cause problems. But then they do tests. No, but they do tests on
I'd
that.
like to interrupt. Do you have a question for the panel? Or are you gonna make a statement to this lady?
I'm saying
Do you
this,
have- do you have a
please.
question for the
I'm
panel?
happy to answer your question,
Do you have a
because
question
this
for the
is a
panel?
question answer session for
That-
the panel, and she
Right.
had a question, I'm trying to answer.
But you're not part of the panel.
You're correct. So the interesting thing is this is a public forum. Is that right? So I don't
Am
have
I
the right
wrong
to
with the
speak. I have no
protocol?
right to free speech. In a public forum? Thank you.
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
should realize how
You're
important
gonna
it
answer
is.
it.
Don't need
You're
to shut
gonna
it
do
down.
this. Go
But
ahead.
you don't want to listen. You got your mind made up, that's fine.
Ask your question.
Come
I
on.
have a question.
I don't have a question to the panel.
Okay.
It's a public
I
forum.
got a question for the panel.
See, this is what I was talking about earlier today.
Go ahead.
No.
Thank you. You said that you have 120 landowners. The most current map, I didn't specifically count, but it's only showing around 80-ish. Is that landowners' properties? I'm a little confused on that. And is there a way to keep track of what the most current map is? Like, do you update the county, because that's where I got the map? Is there a way to like put a date on them when they're updated?
There should be a date on that calendar, if you have a calendar. It should be in the corner. Lower right corner. Right-hand corner.
I see 1 inch equals 5,800 feet.
Should be a date on that.
That's only on the January 6th version.
Oh, okay. I don't
The
know.
latest map that we have
I mean,
is January the 27th. It hasn't been updated. The only way we update the map is once the leases are recorded in the recorder's office so they can cross-check. And then you get your sections, whatever, that show up. And our planning and zoning individual has tried a color code, and then that matches the owner down on the bottom of the map, whoever the owner of the land is.
Okay. And so then also kind of tied to that, what is the acreage that you have signed up? And what is the acreage you need to make the project go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to say, so, I'm not providing the county with any of those numbers. That's their own research, like Greg just said.
Okay.
The director of planning and zoning is finding that from the recorder's office, because that's public data. I will never share with anyone else who has signed up and who hasn't, because I believe it's not my business to talk about someone else's, real estate transactions. So, what you're seeing, that 86 is not people, that's leases. And a lease can be a trust, a company, you know, in a trust there can be 4 people or whatnot, so that's how you get up to that 120 total people.
Oh, okay. So it's how many people are included in the landowners, not just a property. So if I have me and my 3 siblings, you're counting that as 4.
Because all 4 are landowners for that deed.
Okay. And then the acreage amount?
17,902.
And you need 30?
Don't
Ish?
need 30, just depends on how the land comes together. I mean, we can, maybe 4 more landowners and we have all the land tied up. It could take another 60 landowners. that's the part of the development process, so maybe we need 24,000 acres, maybe we need 38,000 acres.
Okay, I'm gonna go gentleman back here, then I'll catch you, and then I'll come to you. I'm sorry. You first.
Okay, I know you talked about this before. In the construction of the turbine, how many acres are taken up with equipment, turbine blades, 5, 6?
So in the construction, it's about 5 acres that we would need space-wise to get all the equipment in and build the turbine. We pay crop damages on all the land that we affect, and we do pay crop damages on the yield from years later that is not producing like the rest of the farm would produce. Now with the turbine itself, it's an 18 to 20 foot radius turbine, and that is based on the model of the turbine. But the access road that goes around the turbine and leading to the turbine is on average 1,250 feet. So that's roughly, depending on the distance, it can be 1/3 to 2/3 of an acre. So we would lease, say 30,000 acres, where a project of above ground infrastructure taken up would only be around 60 acres, 66 acres when you bring the turbine, the substation, and the O&M building.
And the driveway to the turbine is how wide? 16, 20 feet?
I'd say when just the driveway, 15 to maybe 17, we could go maybe a little bit further, 20 feet, when you're going around the turbine to give more radius to turn.
From a mechanic standpoint and inspection, as long as we can get a pickup truck down those access roads, we may start out building it at 16 or 17 feet. Each year, a farmer's gonna get a little closer, get in another row of corn, that's fine. Again, as long as we can get a pickup truck, that's for our needs. Every farmer on their parcel or their pennant can use that access road that we're gonna maintain for the weeds, snow, and the gravel. But they can use it as well for offloading of their crops, so they don't have semis parked alongside the road. They can use, I've got one landowner in Indiana that they use it for their family reunion parking. And the grandkids will run the golf cart from all the folks over there parking on the access road. So we're gonna make that improvement at your design, and then you can use it just as well as we can. As long as we can get down twice a year, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
So, 2 quick questions. So the power produced, is it AC or DC power?
I believe at the turbine, it's AC, and then it's a 3-phase system where it's AC when it's produced, step down to DC throughout the collection line, and step back up to AC onto the grid at the substation.
Okay, is that how it's transported?
Yeah, we'll transform it and ramp it up to match.
Well, I mean, you transport it by DC current? That's what I'm asking. So when you have it, it's alternating current up in the windmill, and it comes down, it's collected as DC then?
Well, it depends on the model of turbine. If the transformer is down tower, it'll be transmitted down tower as AC. If the transformer is up tower, it'll also be transmitted down tower as AC. However, it's a cleaner AC, it's a grid ready AC, so it goes right into the collection system as opposed to having to get stepped up or stepped down through a transformer.
Okay. So when he mentioned earlier though, you lose power over distance, AC doesn't do that. That's what I was curious about. I didn't know, DC is the only thing, so you have a DC source, 12.7 volts, right here in my hand. From me to you, by the time it gets to you, it's gonna be maybe 9.5 volts. AC, that's the point of AC is alternating all the time. Because being an aircraft mechanic, I have to know that, because all aircraft are DC. And then the other part of that question too is with that current, are there any federal regulations, since you said in the previous meeting there was, you getting tax credits. So anything you have to do with taxes, you have to be regulated a little bit by the feds, right? As far as maintenance and.
I'm not the tax guy, so I can find out for you.
You what now?
I'm not the tax guy, so I gotta get back to my tax expert to figure that out.
Well,
Which ways are we regulated by the government when it comes to taxes?
Well, no, I'm talking regulated as like, seems like me, I'm regulated heavily by the federal government because I have to maintain aircraft to a certain standard. And these things are moving through the air. I didn't know if there was a maintenance requirement per your company, internal company, or by the federal government, because, you know, they have to be involved because they're giving tax credits out. So I just wonder if there's any regulations that you have to maintain them, like, I know we have to do annual inspections on aircraft. Is there like so many inspections you have to do, like, you know, they talked about the blades deteriorating, or?
It's the manufacturer's requirements. I'm not aware of the government having standards. I don't think I want the government to have standards.
Trust me, I don't want to either, but I have to.
We have the internal studies and statistics that, our fleet is around 96.5% wind ready to capture and produce electric. We do have manufacturer standards that they must meet in order to maintain, from the manufacturer, so.
Okay, ma'am, over here.
I'm sorry, I think this was discussed at the last meeting, but I wasn't there. So I was curious, I think you said that the estimated revenue to the county and the townships is 133 million, of which 68 goes to the county. And I'm just, how is that number calculated? Or what is that from energy that's generated, or is that from property tax assessments, or where does that come from?
Property tax assessment.
Okay.
So we have to work with the tax assessor.
So the idea is that the properties that have wind turbines on them are then considered more valuable, or where did, I guess I'm just trying to understand, you say property tax assessment.
So with the access road leading to the turbine, we work with the assessor to kind of, I don't know if they officially parcel that out or make sure that that is being assessed based on, I believe it's commercial.
Right?
And then the landowner will not see an increase in their taxes when it comes to the infrastructure on their land based on our project. That's separated out from their taxes, and the assessor sends to us, and we pay that, the taxes on that land that the infrastructure is on.
Okay. So that number is just an estimate, because you don't actually know how many people are gonna sign up, you don't know how many access roads you're going to have and so forth. So that could change, it could be more.
Up or down, it's the size of the project, 300 megawatts, if it's a smaller project, larger project, those numbers will.
Okay. And then I have a question for the board of supervisors, if they're taking this. So, my question is, for those of us that aren't large landowners, but feel like we're going to be impacted by the project, you know, what's our recourse? I know you're asking for email comments, and there's been no actual application right now, so there's not really any action, but at some point, if an application is made, and for those of us that aren't signing a lease, but still feel like we are impacted as residents of Henry County, I mean, there's a lot more than 120 people living in Henry County. So what's our course of action as far as kind of getting our say, and also maybe getting, you know, we're not getting compensated, but I think a lot of us feel like we're going to have a negative impact on our property values, residential values, and things like that. So what's the process? How does this work for those of us that aren't farm landowners? If you can answer that.
Mark, you would give You put me in a hard spot there.
Sorry,
Well,
Mr.
that's good.
Neighbor.
First of all, that's why we're having these meetings too.
Right.
It's for us to learn what the community wants to. So that answers that portion. There is no other recourse for you, because if you don't sign up. But the only thing is like what they talk about is the taxable value that would come back to the county and help us out that way.
So let's show our supervisors who all is against this project. Raise your hand. Okay, gentlemen, all three of you, look around.
Now I want everybody to look up a file that I learned about like yesterday that come about. Matt, can you unpack that at all? The
Yes.
Senate study bill, 3160.
3169.
169.
So that bill has, been brought up to committee at your state capitol, and that's a statewide citing, regulations, I guess. So I believe this came up because there are counties, enough counties in, the state that are putting ordinance together that is, basically banning wind without saying we're banning wind. And when enough, of the counties are doing that, I think, it impacts developers like us, and we have to go to a different county to develop a project. But, so really quick, Illinois in January of '23, they passed statewide citing. Michigan just passed it in November. Now Iowa's, the utilities are actually working with developers and others trying to propose language that would basically set a standard across Iowa where the state level will provide what the distance is from homes, from property lines, what the sound is. It will all be regulated by the state and take that control away from the county. So that is basically what the board or the state is looking at right now. And because it is coming up now where maybe the industry maybe sees that as easier if there is a state level citing, and if we abide by these regulations, then we check the boxes, we're able to build a project. But since we're not developing as many projects because ordinances are out there making it very restrictive for these projects, the utilities are getting involved. Iowa ranks #1 of wind generation in the whole country.
#2.
We do not produce the most wind, but it's not the most generated. Texas is #1, #2 is Iowa, but Iowa's percent of energy that it generates, wind is #1 in Iowa, at I believe 64% of Iowa's electricity that is generated here in the state is from wind alone. So I believe that
stay.
Right, or benefit anybody that lives there.
you guys are actually like a net exporter of energy. Better being an importer of energy where you need it, you are sending it to states, using it here and sending it where it needs to be. Because the wind is here, that's why turbines are here. So yes, the statewide siting bill, is going up into committee. They can look at it, don't like what they see, send it back down to a lower committee, work at it, and they can be brought back up 2024, 2025. But the utilities are getting involved because they have goals of their own, and they see where wind projects or solar projects not being able to be developed, their growth is gonna be going down because they are having to decommission coal plants. And with decommissioning coal plants, you have to replace it with some type of energy. And they're saying that it's not as much energy going into the portfolio. It's gonna impact possibly people's rates will go up. I don't know that, but maybe that's a thought. But it's as much as developers would probably put forth this statewide siting bill of some sort through lobbying, the utilities are just as in favor of it. I believe I explained that. More of the utilities of Iowa.
Bill, you have a question?
Yeah, I have 3 now. I'll address yours first. If I can remember it. You're rattled so long I forgot my question. But let's go to the gentleman, the U.S. Navy gentleman. I might want to say thank you for your service, if he's listening.
Thank you.
So now I've forgotten the question I was going to ask you, because it's about 4 questions ago. So I guess I'll reserve the right. No, back up and say a little bit more of what you said, repeat it. I don't want to hear it, but I need you to prompt me on the question. No, I'm talking to Matt now. You're later if I can, my recall's getting.
About the bill.
Oh, the bill's dead.
Yeah.
The bill is dead. You didn't mention that. You said it was gonna go to committee and everything. It's dead.
Well, if it doesn't pass, they can always bring it back to you.
I'm your state representative for this county. I just walked in here at 6:30. The bill's dead. Our final deadline's today. It's not going anywhere.
you, Taylor.
That means our supervisors need to do jobs for our county.
Yeah.
We're working on a project where when we kicked it off, there was no mention of a statewide site. So we just have.
That's
the
why our
county-
supervisors
Okay,
don't
in
want
addition to
to
that,
job.
what's the matter with local control? Apparently, there's a reason why these counties are banning you without saying they're banning you. Maybe we think like they do too. What's the problem? Why do you have to take it to above our leaders? We have every right and we are intelligent enough to make our own decisions. That's why we elect these three. I'm sure you're lobbying for that. Your company is, the whole Green Coalition, we all know. All the buyers of the energy for the carbon credits, like you said, that will go from coast to coast, not gonna land here. So we are pretty much financing the dividends for Fortune 500 companies in a charitable way, once again, those of us that don't belong to your membership, to give their shareholders a little higher dividend. Is that not true?
Trevor, raise your hand higher.
So,
Originally, renewables were designed to offset the carbon emissions to help save the ozone. We are working on a free capital society, putting in the lowest cost to generate electricity. It is the national scene that is turning all of this green global warming stuff that I personally don't see the results in it between the weather forecast and everything else. We're still operating on the free capital society aspect.
right, but really,
I'm not the only one.
mitigation thing, and I know it's not your fault.
It is. I mean, we're just
it's
operating
the world
within-
leaders or whatever. It's the last form of legalized extortion. So that's political.
No, that's paper.
beyond this. But, so, I guess I'll quit with that for a little bit.
Ladies.
Thank you. First, I guess, thanks to the supervisors for creating that map, because I think without that, a lot of us may not even know. That seemed to generate the discussions in a lot of ways. I appreciate that, because I did not know. But in follow-up to Emily's question on recourse and some of the answers on that, I guess, and a question I asked the other night, Matthew, and I think Julie had answered me with a question, but I want to clarify because I want to make sure this gets into the questions, is in the ordinance, and if I can read just a couple sentences on that, it says, and this is the beginning of it, statement of intent, the purpose of this section is to facilitate the construction, installation, and operation of facilities designed to generate energy from alternative sources, to include commercial solar energy systems, commercial wind energy conversion systems in Henry County in a manner that promotes economic development, protects property values, that's my headline, bold, that's what I'm talking about, and ensures the protection of health, safety, and welfare, while also avoiding adverse impacts to important areas such as agricultural lands, conservation lands, and other sensitive lands. So that we know is all important as well. And we could talk about that for a lot. I could talk about it for a lot. But my main focus tonight in this discussion is the property values, and the same questions reflected in what Emily talked about and many people have talked about throughout. But my question that I asked the other night, and Julie was not able to answer it, she answered me with a question. I asked, what are you actively doing to protect property values? Because that is the ordinance. So that would be an expectation that you'd be compliant with that. And to add on to that, I don't believe that paying people is protecting property values. Those two are mutually exclusive. Because when your money stream goes away, my property sits here at a value either more or less or the same, right? There's nothing that's added by paying certain people money, okay? So what is being done? And that's my question. I want to make sure it's captured if you're not able to answer it tonight, because back to some of the questions that people have had about the follow-up that RWE does and who you are, a lot of our questions have been answered with questions. I've experienced that myself, and that's concerning to me because she stated back to me, and not verbatim, but basically, what do you want to see? My question of you is, what are you doing? Because you're the ones that have to uphold the ordinance. You're the ones that are coming in. I'm not doing anything different. You're the ones that are doing something different. And so my expectation would be, you're following this, and so far the answers have not been given on that. And I'm one of those small landowners. I'm the 4 acres sitting in the middle of a lot of colors. I've said that before. And I'm likely gonna have a turbine next to me, is what it looks like. I didn't know about that until 3 weeks ago, when all this started being generated. No one came to me as they went up and down the road soliciting my neighbors multiple times to no avail in some cases. But no one came and said, hey, you know what, we would like to be your neighbor. And to be a good neighbor, we want to let you know about this. No one did that. So, my other question is, what are you doing to be a good neighbor when it comes to those types of things? When you're not full disclosure, you're not saying, hey, we're here, and this is what we're trying to do, and this is how it benefits you. Or at least introducing yourselves. I didn't know about it, and you have been here, you said March of 22 was when the project started? 2 years almost. 2 years.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. So when we develop a project, we start with larger landowners, and we do that because they have enough acres that it can host some of this infrastructure. We do follow up in the process of development with reaching out to adjacent owners to see if they do want to sign up on the project, and we just haven't gotten to that point. It's within the process of this 4 to 5 year plan, so yes, it has been 2 years. I'm sorry we haven't gotten to you yet, but we will. It's part of that process. So we focus on the larger landowners first. And I would like to continue our dialogue. I know you emailed me and I've answered. I want to answer that property value question to you and get it there. Work with experts and find out what we did on past wind farms when situations came up like this, and how can we make it beneficial to adjacent landowners that are not necessarily signed on to the project. Thank you.
I have one back here first, and I'll get to you, but I know, put your arm in, I got you. I know you. Go ahead.
My question is, we've been here for about 2.5 hours. Really haven't got a straight answer yet. And you keep telling us you're gonna have these 2 year, you got studies for 2, 3 more years, and you told us at the beginning of the meeting, you're planning on starting building towers in 26. You haven't even got the studies done yet, sir. So how do you expect to be starting building on something you don't have the studies done yet? How can you do that? Really, how can you do that?
2026 is best case scenario, but there's already things
But
that's
here
gonna
we
be
go,
pushing
again,
that.
not a correct answer. You're just skimming around the boat.
You guys are great at skating. Absolutely great at skating. You should start a club of skaters, because that's all you're doing.
All right, let's lay the other question.
What do you do about like the strikes out there?
Yeah, so that does happen, and if a turbine catches on fire, making sure, like we'll know right away, because first we track the weather at all of our wind farms. If there seems like an issue is gonna happen, we know about it at our command center in Austin, where there's 100 people always on staff, 3 shifts, and they see, there's a weather event, let's look at this, they look at the turbines will shut down if there's an imbalance. So as soon as lightning strikes and it hits a blade, say, and it catches fire, then the local fire department is notified as soon as possible by our crew members. It can be from a residence calling to see it, whoever gets to the fire department first. So that's where those setbacks come in, where the turbine is designed to fall on themselves. So we're gonna let it burn. I mean, why put people in danger of that? Let it burn, make sure that the setbacks are in place for that reason, security area, and don't let the field catches on fire beneath the turbine from the falling blades. Don't let
There's a fully built-in lightning protection system in each house. So, it's to minimize the chances of fire breaking out is what it is. And it just transmits the electricity plays into the tower, into the ground system now through the foundation all the way to the earth.
What concern do we have in defamation lawsuits doing research? Because there are windmill companies that are suing citizens for libel. So if people are speaking out and you're giving non-answers and we communicate amongst ourselves, I don't know what answer you're gonna give, but do you see that we're concerned about that, or is that not a thing?
I see that you're concerned, but I mean, I don't have that background. I would have to take that to one of my experts to get an answer.
Can I address the people? I mean, you guys are aware that that's happening, that people are being sued because they speak about this, and the magic show with the bus tour to go look, you're showing us how you're gonna cut the lady in half, but we're all gonna get tricked. So, you're being really nice. Are we gonna get sued for talking about it amongst ourselves?
That's a first.
Well, at the beginning of this, you said that your agreement said, don't be a worrywart. So if we don't agree with this, are we worrywarts, or we don't wanna look at turbines? Cause no matter if it gets struck by lightning, or oil leaks, or whatever, a 300-foot setback versus 1,300 versus 1,000, there's still a 650-foot structure times 62 at the cost of the sunset. That's what we're dealing with. It's not, is it sound or bats, or nobody cares about that. We all have to look at this for 35 to 50 years. They're not going away. Look up the pictures of a landscape with windmills. And the supervisors, that's what we're dealing with. There are plenty of cities who have ordinances. They don't wanna look at trash cans, they don't wanna look at RVs. We don't wanna look at windmills. It doesn't matter all these details you guys are giving. We don't wanna look at them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was curious about the concrete. How much concrete does each turbine need, and is that gonna be locally sourced?
So, great question. So for all the labor of the project, we want to source as local as possible. I believe there's 2 companies locally that could supply the concrete. And for the amount of concrete, each turbine depends on the model and how heavy they weigh and stuff like that. At a 600-foot turbine, you're looking at 500 cubic yards of concrete.
Into the ground for decades.
Go ahead.
I'll get to you.
So, to go further with that, you said that you guys, if I'm understanding the contract correctly, you're not responsible for anything under 4 foot, is that correct?
What the ordinance states.
Okay.
Decommissioning.
Where, in relation to the grade, after you're done and finished grading somebody's project, where is the top of the concrete in relation to the top of the dirt?
The top of the concrete would be at what's set in that ordinance at 4 feet below the ground.
So you're telling me you're putting 4 foot of dirt on top of that concrete?
Yes, we have to.
So that means the landowner will never have the concrete removed?
They will not have below that 4 feet removed. That's.
So basically 100% of the concrete will always be there?
Do you understand his question? So we've got grade, 4 feet concrete, or is the concrete at grade?
Every landowner that's signed up is understandable of that foundation and the potential of having it there.
Does everybody understand that?
So the landowners will not be removed. They understand on the decommissioning side of things, whether that landowner or the next generation puts a barn on it or whatnot for a foundation.
But does everybody understand that?
Not even close.
Top of the concrete will be 4 foot below the top of the dirt grade, meaning that they will not remove any of the concrete that they put in the ground. So 500 cubic yards of concrete will be there forever. Number 2, 30 years into the project,
you decide to continue using that turbine, does the farmer or the landowner have the right to reject you continue?
Yes.
Not on Tuesday.
No, or sorry, at the end of our life
No.
of the project.
Say you
for
go
the
35 years, you come in at 32 years and you decide that, hey, this thing's still working, we're gonna continue this turbine. Does the home or the landowner have the right to terminate that contract?
No, that is our right to.
Well, but that's a hypothetical, because we're not going to reinvest the money for new materials and new assets and only have a 3-year lease left. So that determination would be made long before the 32 year or 32nd.
But I just wanna make sure that everybody understands, so what does that take that next level to?
Yeah, if they do decommission it,
No,
or
you
if they
guys
want-
get to decide if you decommission. I'm talking about the owner.
Right.
They don't get that choice. You guys are making the choice. So my question now is, how many more years is it locked in if you guys decide not to decommission?
It's just what the lease is. If we want to go longer, that would have to be renegotiated.
No, it's
well,
So we get 2 5-year extensions if we choose so, but we can also repower the project.
Yep.
And that is a whole new lease that the landowner has to agree to, and we can't just say, here's a new lease for another 60 years. You know, they have to agree to that, and if another.
Tuesday, you told us that it was 52 years.
That is counting the extensions and the development term.
And the person that signed that contract is locked into that up to 52 years.
Up to that.
Does everybody understand that?
Yeah, but going up to those extension periods, we're gonna look at what equipment out there, what's more efficient, what generates more power, you know, and we can, at the same time, use those machines that maybe there's only 40 machines needed, not 60, so we decommission fully 20 towers, remove below the topsoil of the ground, or the top of the ground, 4 feet down, with the concrete, all that's removed and
There's
replaced.
no concrete in
and
the
then-
4 foot. There's no concrete in the 4 foot.
Then, there's a new contract, and that's where the landowners can either opt in or opt out.
So I just want everybody to understand that even if the landowner does not want this contract to continue after, say, 5 years into it, you're not gonna have the chance to get out of this thing for up to 55 years if that is in a very efficient machine.
So,
Am I correct?
let me clarify those numbers just a little bit. You've got a 35-year contract.
Yep.
Okay? You're getting to the 52 by adding the 7-year options to that also. That's pre-construction. Those 7 years have nothing to do with construction. The construction lease, or the turbine lease for the wind, starts at the year of construction. It goes 35 from that. At that time, at that 35 years, if things are right, we have the option within that easement to extend it another 5 years. And then at that point, we have an option, if everything, the equipment's good, they wanna spend that money, they have the option to extend that 5 more years.
Who's they?
RWE can continue that. So we're going 35,
Yep.
5 and 5. So the longest term of this easement is 45 years.
45.
Okay. The
So
50,
then why
you're
do you-
getting to the 52 because you're adding 7 years of option.
Well-
That's the money that the landowner's getting while we're working on all this stuff that we've been talking about tonight. You know, getting our permitting, environmental, all the other studies that we have to do to get there. That 7-year window is for that. We get past that 7-year window, we could be done, okay? It didn't work. So they kept that money and we went on to another project, okay? You can't add the 7 years into this thing and come.
Alright, so 45 years instead
So
of
45 is the top of
Okay.
that, okay? Now, one more thing I wanna address real quick. When you're talking about the concrete in the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah.
Okay, we're looking at a 10 to 12 foot
Yeah.
from the surface of the ground down, okay? It's gonna be, it depends on, again, like Matthew was saying, it depends on the diameter, the size of the unit, and how much concrete's underground.
Yeah.
But let's say it's an 80-foot circle. It's gonna come up a foot, and it's gonna start tapering to the cylinder itself.
Yeah.
As that comes up out of the ground, it's gonna get within 4 foot of the surface level, and that's where they start that cone, that the turbine is actually setting, okay? So when we say we're gonna take it back down to 4 foot, they're literally taking the top of that cone off to at ground, whatever existing ground level is, they're gonna take the dirt, bring it all back around that, and they're gonna take that, knock the top of that foundation off 4 foot back down. So yes, there is concrete removed, and it's quite a bit. Obviously, there's more down there in that bottom base part than there is in the cove. There's still a lot of concrete. So that gives you the ability to come back in and farm like you normally did. Your detail is, what, at best 3 foot? Yeah, so you're away from that concrete. So it's a little more, it's not a structure that you have to worry about in your normal farming practice.
Do you have a diagram, elevational view diagram showing the farmer what that's gonna look like at decommission?
Yes.
Okay, because I think that they deserve to see that.
Oh, okay. Any landowner that's.
In 2 years?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think, they should have seen that before they even signed the contract.
They did.
They have.
Okay, all right.
Definitely, most definitely.
No, let me talk to the lady back here first.
This question is for the supervisors. Can you tell everyone here what was decided today at the meeting so that people understand? Someone was asking about the process from here so that people realize that you're planning to go back through the planning and zoning process.
That's correct. The reason we did not have the first reading today is because we were told by the assistant county attorney, or advised by the assistant county attorney, to basically put everything on hold due to this bill possibly going through. Now, I don't know, Taylor, you have to help me out here, whether that can be added as an amendment to another bill.
It's dead.
Dead?
Dead.
Okay. So
I'm taking
now-
a shot ahead, it's dead.
So now the process will be, that we will make, supervisors will make recommendations or changes to the current ordinance as it is listed. Then it will go back to planning and zoning. Planning and zoning will then have public hearings. Everybody's invited. Okay? For more input.
Tell us when and where.
5 planning and zoning board members will then make recommendations. They can come in and then move some things around too if they wish to, okay? Or accept what we've given to them. Their meeting, my understanding, would be scheduled for March the 12th.
Would be the earliest.
Be the earliest meeting, correct. That's a Tuesday night, and usually it starts at 4 o'clock, I think? 5?
4. It says 4 on the website.
Okay.
4 o'clock.
Will it be in a district courtroom?
Well, I can't answer that, but we would obviously need more room than what is in the second floor conference room.
Yes.
Or in our office. 'Cause
Yes, you will.
it'll be March the 12th, starting at 4 o'clock.
That's not set in stone yet.
No, it's not set in stone, but that's the next available date.
So leading up to that, then people can still give you emails and letters.
No, I've answered some emails, obviously I haven't answered all of them. My answer back to you is I thank you for your input and your concerns. I'm not gonna write a dissertation back to you.
And then the
Okay,
planning
we
and
read it.
the planning and zoning, do they take input or only like emails or only at this public meeting? Or how do we find that out?
I think that would be, you could direct them to the planning and zoning director, or we can forward what you have sent to us on to him, and then that can be passed on to the P and Z board members. Okay, so I would say this, I'm more than willing to forward those on to our planning and zoning. Any comments you have, any input that you want to give to us as supervisors, which as you probably have seen my response, I don't know if some of you emailed or not. I said on Tuesday night, you're welcome to email us at supervisors@henrycounty.us. So we can read, excuse me? Oh, I missed Iowa? Supervisors@henrycounty.iowa.us, it's all lowercase.
All spelled out.
All spelled out, no abbreviations.
And we're all taking turns reading this. And what we're doing, what I'm doing is compiling all the different ideas and making notations on them where they would fit in the regulation, the ordinances, where they would plug in. Some of them are just way out there, some of them are things like, whoa, yeah, that's a good point. That's why we're asking for comments and input from people, because there's things that you might realize that we don't see, and you need to share that with us, pro or con. We're putting that together. We then will visit with that back and forth and hammer things around a little bit, and then it'll go back to that planning and zoning to restart the issue. There will be public address or public meetings where people are gonna have to, rather than get off the butt, they're gonna have to look at things. They're gonna have to look at dates and make themselves available at these meetings, at the planning and zoning public meetings. So, yeah, I'm sorry, but it is important to register that email, because it's just not lost in the wind there. We know who wrote it, when it was wrote, and we can compile that information, okay?
Yes, sir.
This is directed to you guys. I've been farming for over 50 years, me and my brother. You're gonna pour this concrete in the ground, you're gonna take 4 foot off. Do you guys know that corn grows deeper than 4 foot? So that's the roots gets down to that concrete, it dies or don't grow. So how do we get past that? Are you gonna come out and pay us for that spot that don't grow corn? Probably not. So, you know, you guys are silly here. That you think that you can pull this by the farmer. If you go ask every farmer, they're gonna tell you corn grows deeper than 4 feet. So, you know, you go out and bore holes in there so the roots can go down, or what?
I don't know if you've signed up with a project or you haven't. Those that have are fully aware and will divulge to all of that. By the time that comes down in the 45 years, not gonna be an issue that you or I will have to worry about.
So we don't care about the next generation.
Just keep thinking. There are ergonomics that talk about 4 to 8 foot.
Yeah.
That was something that was agreed upon with RWE and the original parties that entered into that agreement.
This lady has another question.
So that lease, when they sign on for 35 years, they by chance sell their farm?
There's none, whoever has the deed for that land is who holds that lease.
So if they sell the farm, in between when they start to set it up, before 35 years is over, then the project is done. That's what I'm asking. If I sell the farm to somebody else, 3, 4 leases up,
Yeah.
the person who buys the farm automatically pick up the lease. Okay, that's what I was asking.
Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a timeline? I've learned a lot about the environment study, about the 15-month wind study. Is there a timeline, a step-by-step timeline for the process? You came in March of '22, what needs to be done, ordinance being passed? Is there a timeline that gives us some idea of what's yet to be done?
Yes.
Or where we're at in the process?
Yes, I can provide the timeline to the county so everyone can see just generally, because there's a lot of, moving parts. There's over like 30 permits that I need for this project, and timelines shift, so it may fluctuate maybe years.
But it still gives us an idea of this step, this
Correct,
step, this
yes.
step. Yeah, I'll email you.
Thank you. Any other further questions? Yes, ma'am.
Real quick for you, if the new ordinance doesn't pass and they stay with the one that's already in place, are you able to work within the parameters of the original, the 10-year-old ordinance, or I don't know how old it is, enough for the new London one? Does that work within your guys' parameters?
It does.
the rest of the supervisors here. I've been listening, I've watched both other meetings on the internet, and, I live in Wayland, and a gentleman made a comment that everybody should get to vote on this. And somebody said they don't want the city people to vote. Well, I just want you to know that I'm a city person, and that you guys need to be careful, because during COVID, people listened to the people that knew what was going on, and see where it got.
Experts, I wanna ask you, where did you hear you didn't want city people voting?
I heard that online on Tuesday's meeting from Wayland, Iowa. It's on the internet.
Did anybody ever hear, I don't ever remember hearing or anybody saying that anybody from the city should not be voting or a part of that.
It wasn't any of you guys. It was
Oh,
somebody-
okay, I misunderstood you.
I should clarify.
Okay, because I was like, whoa.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
so us city slickers, we're not all dummies.
No, I misunderstood you. I thought it was.
I'll give it to you, Mr. Beechek. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Let's say somebody signs up their property and 10 years from now, they want to section off 2 acres to give their kid to have their own little homestead. How does that work with the lease? Does that new 2 acres get taken out of the lease? Like, there's no infrastructure at all on that 2 acres, and it's within the easements. What happens to those 2 acres? Can they sell it to their own kid or somebody else?
They can do that. I would have to see how that acres would then read, if it's part of the project or not. I would assume it would be part of the project. When it comes to like setbacks, we have to abide by the setbacks that the county has in the ordinance. But after we build the project, we do not have anything in our contract that, as long as you don't impact the wind, which is anything built 45 feet and taller, then, you can build wherever you want, even under the turbine. If you wanted to put a house there, we won't stop you, but for safety reasons, we will not recommend it. But there's nothing in the lease that says what you cannot build if you are not impacting those speeds.
Let me clarify that a little bit. So when you have an easement, and say you have 4 pin numbers, you have 3 40-acre sections, and you want to sell, and you sign the lease, and that lease is gonna be stuck to those 4 pin numbers for that period of time. So if the 2 acre thing is different, but if you, say you wanted to sell 40 acres to your son, and so when you do that, that lease follows that agreement with that deed. You're the owner of the deed that time, it transferred to the next owner of the deed, okay?
Right,
So the
is it
four,
separated?
so,
How does it get separated between the 2 people? 'Cause now it's 2
it would
parties.
break down within the numbers of the easement agreement, if you sold half your property. But you can't sell that land and retain the wind rights to it. That's by state law.
Can the 2 acres not have the wind rights?
So that's the question I can't answer directly, but that's the reason I wanted to answer it in the 40-acre stage. So in a 40-acre scenario, yes, it would still have that wind attached to it because it's part of that easement, okay?
Does that start over the 35-year lease? Like-
No, it falls whichever perimeter it fell when that fell. If it's 5 years, 10, 20, it wouldn't matter. It still end out at the same time it was originally. It just has a new owner. But I don't know who we have to ask about the 2 acre deal. Probably, if you sold 2 acres out of that like that, what do you guys think? Would a 2 acre thing with these road hills to where we talking about? No, I'm talking about the land, the land sell itself. I don't care what they want to do. I just want to know if they were sold 2 acres out. I know if it's 40 acres, the acres are still open, but they would have sold 2 acres out. It could be amended. You'll get 20 acres.
They can't opt out, the people who now own 2 acres, they couldn't opt out of being a part of the program at that point.
That buys that 2 acres?
Yeah, or it was given to them, it was a
case by case basis, sometimes with the property that information that, 5 years I decided I don't want to be a part of it. We've planned, we've insured it, we've guaranteed with some of the banks, part of our financing that this is gonna be a project. And whether it's 2 acres, and the 2 acres, that is a case by case basis, we're bringing it to RWE. I mean, if it's 1 hour, something at least discussion. I'm not saying it's not out of the question, but given that everybody that's involved internally as well as externally, from the finance, the banks, and insurance and everything, that again, just bring it up and be if it was something, if you're already participating, and then you sell out that 2 acres and don't. I know it's not answering your question, it's not as current, but there are a lot of case by case things. Essentially, we're looking to identify the footprint of real estate, who's in, who's out. And then Matthew's job is to try to coordinate designing that and constructing it based on the participation level as well as what the county regulations are, or whether it's at the state level. So we could essentially, have to change things in midstream as far as a different size turbine or not as many turbines. We have a project until we don't. And so that might sound a little facetious, but with everything that's involved, it's not like we signed up today and we're digging one day. No, we want to invest and protect our investment as well as the health, safety, and welfare of the community. We want to make sure everything is in line before we get to construction. And whenever that is, whether it's the 2026 timeframe or 2027, it just has to go depending on when we have our permits. So whenever Matthew gets permits at the county and or state or federal level, we'll operate and build based on that timeframe. If he hasn't got the permits that have changed, then we'll have to make applications based on those new regulations, whatever.
Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, during the course of the 35-year contract, are you guys ever gonna come in and say, hey, we wanna add a couple more windmills to your property, can you do that? Let's say it met with all the ordinances or new ordinance that came about. Are you ever gonna make this wind farm bigger during that time frame?
Not within the confines of the boundary that's identified. If there's gonna be additions, it would be a phase 2 as
adjacent.
Yeah, but because of the design factor of the existing turbines and the effects downstream, you don't, okay, let's get a permit and then let's put in 3 or 4 more. It affects the performance of it. So what is designed, what is permitted is for that encompassing of the project. And no, we will never put any more in between it.
It's not cost effective. Restrictions within the other stuff we talked about already. Road right of ways, house setbacks, communication access is coming through the county. So, yeah, once it's designed and built, it's going to stay that way.
Okay.
And we will design it based off the regulations that will definitely meet, in most cases will exceed. That is our goal, is to exceed. And so, again, that's part of that flexibility, is the woman said with her special needs child. Yeah, that's something we would really like to get. I don't want to say a number because I don't want to held to it, but it could be 2 or 3 times what everything else is because of her request. We'll do everything we can to get as far away from it. Within some of the landowners that are participating, may not be on the west side, so we just have to be concerned with the turbines west of that lake. So again, every situation is looked at as far as trying to get as far away as we can to as many things which would exceed the local and or state regulations.
Now, it's been talked about earlier tonight, Melody did, about the special needs child. We are all here in Henry County. Now, let's say that you go to the east edge of Canaan Township and you put one in there. What about our neighbors in Des Moines County that will be affected by this? Would be in the flicker zone of 1-year tower. What about the people in Washington County that didn't want wind turbines out there. And they are visual to those. A 650-foot tower can be seen how far? Where it's flat.
Oh, no, it's more than that.
Miles and miles.
Cause I can see New London's from.
If you
20
put
miles
them
away.
up here,
So
and
you're
it's,
talking-
I think 200th Street is the bottom level. If you go that far to the south, it's gonna affect people in West Point, Salem, Hillsborough, Lockreach, Fairfield, Washington. New London has one, it's only 300 and some feet.
413.
413.
415. When I come out of Middletown, I can see it. Supervisor White says he gets up the road leaving his house, he can see New London's. You put these 460 foot, even a 415 foot, or 650, 590, whatever. It's gonna affect a lot of people even outside of our county.
Will those people have any rights? No. Can they say what it's doing to their child?
Or I have flicker effects at sunset, and the shadow flickers through my windows of my house. It bothers me. What recourse do those people, our neighbors, have? I'm only about a half a mile from the county line, and I got a couple neighbors that have problems as it is. And they're in Des Moines County.
What will be their recourse?
How are you gonna take care of those people?
If we're building in, on the ordinance of Henry County, then we don't have to follow the ordinance of Washington, Des Moines County. If our infrastructure is in Henry County.
Okay, last year when I was up here at your meeting, I appreciate you guys coming, my parting comment was, why don't you build these in South Dakota, North Dakota, where the wind always blows?
Wyoming.
And your answer was, we don't have any transmission lines out there. My statement to you was, if you think big, you'll get big, and you build your own damn transmission lines and stay out of Iowa. Not in my backyard. I sure may be one of your stockholders.
Well, they're being financed by the
Thank you for your time. Thank you to the board of supervisors. I appreciate you guys.
Just like what he said, thank you, supervisor, you guys being here. This question's for the supervisor, do you think it's time to wrap it up for tonight?
I do want to apologize, I got a little heated, I think you did too, I will apologize to them, I'm sorry, ma'am, I think she's already left. Oh, no.
No, I'm still here.
Lori's commented on that one.
I'm ready for a bourbon.
I was a lot closer
I
to
do
you this
appreciate
morning.
everybody's input and conversations that they have. And thanks to RWE for basically answering those questions to the best of their abilities. I'm not on their side, but what I'm saying is, I don't know that I could answer some of the questions that have been asked, even if I was going to be part of it. But again, comments, questions, basically, if you have input, send it to us, supervisors at henrycountyiowa.us.